Batman the Brave and the Bold is often considered to be the more childish Batman show as it adapts Silver Age comics, and especially because it immediately follows both Batman the Animated Series and 2004's The Batman. But disguised in this more PG version of The Dark Knight are a series of lessons and morals sewn between episodes much deeper than most children's shows of the time, teaching children about how to deal with failure, anger, and even death. As nuanced as some of the themes of the show can get, it is ultimately still a children's cartoon, and there are a lot of episodes that define that identity well. I'll pick out Plague of the Prototypes for no other reason than it has Adam West in it, and start by showing you the more basic side of what the series tries to get across. We see Proto the Batbot trying to help Batman with his crusade against crime, but stumble at many hurdles, with his larger-than-life size and personality making things a bit cumbersome. The episode plays on, and by the end, Proto saves the day by putting others before himself and being brave in the face of an adverse situation. This is the sort of lesson that every kid's show will try and teach its audience at one point or another, but what Brave and the Bold does differently is it will revisit these themes to show children different perspectives, or better yet, the exceptions. The somber sound of whale song spans the coast as Batman waits for the next Zeta beam to transport him to the planet Ron. Upon closer inspection, he finds a strangely despondent Aquaman singing his sorrows to the blue. After pressing him for answers and learning the square root of bugger all, he decides to bring him along for the adventure. Ron is under attack, and Adam Strange needs help to ward off an oncoming war. Our three heroes attempt to infiltrate an underwater enemy warship, and Aquaman loses his temper with Adam after he suggests using the local sea life as cannon fodder to get closer. It's here that we learn of the last time Aquaman tried to be brave, just like how we see Proto save the day, but this time it didn't work. This time, Aquaman was too late to intervene with a group of whale poachers, and neither being brave nor bold was enough. I really like how they let this sit with the viewer and show them a more realistic side to the whole be brave and win with the power of friendship that you see all the time. I think this is the reason it resonated so much with me as a child, because we all had things going wrong around us constantly, and it was refreshing to see the media that I was consuming address that fact. I wasn't Batman or Sonic or whoever I was watching at the time. They understood that the plot armor didn't apply to me, and it validated those feelings of being a bit helpless, which is really important for children to have. Obviously, the episode continues, returns hope to the viewer, narrowly avoiding a wave of newly nihilistic 8-year-olds. Aquaman gets back on his seahorse, and the three heroes save the day. Before I saw this as a child, I genuinely imagined that being brave was to fight a dragon, or to stay calm in the quicksand we all thought was going to be a much bigger problem than it was. Just me? Alright. But this shows that being brave actually just means having the courage to try again, and to not let your shortcomings define you. Alright, before I get to my main point, let's talk about the bat cow in the room. Chill of the night. Anyone who is familiar with the show knows what a big deal this episode is. This is Brave and the Bold's one deviation from the campiness, an attempt at a grittier story, and fans loved it so much it actually led to the cancellation of the show, so that the next reboot could have every episode be more like this one. That obviously didn't happen, but you live and you learn. If you aren't familiar with the show, however, hold on to your bad socks. Batman pulls out all the stops this time around, going undercover, brutal interrogation, somehow changing the color grading of this episode specifically to look more like BTAS, all in an attempt to finally find the man who murdered his parents. This episode is really interesting. It was written by Paul Dini, a prominent writer on the animated series, and features many returning actors from the Batman mythos. I highly recommend giving it a watch, even as a standalone episode, or just learning more about it, but the plot synopsis is for another time. I'm here to talk about how they personified the concepts of vengeance and justice. You've heard the big man say it 1,000 times. I am vengeance. But he isn't really, and this episode dives into why. The Spectre, today's advocate for vengeance, spends the episode trying to convince Batman to murder Joe Chill, the man who took his parents' lives, while the Phantom Stranger fights the corner for justice. 15 minutes later, an 8-year-old me is sat on the edge of his seat by what must have been a singular atom as Batman unmasks himself and beats the snot out of Chill as Bruce Wayne. I was unironically stressing when I saw this for the first time. We all know Batman can't actually murder this guy, but if he lets him go, then his secret identity is busted wide open for the plethora of villains sat in the next room for plot convenience. After some attempts at convincing from the Conroy and Hamill on his shoulder, Batman decides that even though letting Joe Chill would kill the Batman, an act in cold vengeance would kill Bruce Wayne, and that isn't who he is, nor who he wants to be. Cartoon Network enjoyers around the globe rest easy knowing Batman stuck to his morals, but for a lot of kids, including me, this was the first time they'd ever seen the morals explained beyond just killing bad or the if I start I won't stop malarkey. The fact that this the show, this typically goofier version of Batman slipping into brutality and obsession before being assured that that isn't who he wants to be is important. Watching Chill be let free only to be crushed in the rubble of a fight he caused is where I learned that people will get what's coming to them. Whether you believe in karma or, like me, just the roundabout consequences of one's own actions eventually kicking them in the arse, being vindictive and trying to get even with people isn't going to change what happened to you, and it doesn't make you feel any better like you'd think it would. Not only that, but it also shows that being the hero isn't about how you handle the D-listers, Calendar Man and Condiment King. It's about what you do when shit hits the bad fan, and decisions aren't easy. But enough about morals, I see why you clicked this. Let's get into how the show narrowly avoided traumatizing a generation with the concept of their own mortality. We start by easing kids into the idea. Trials of the Demon takes us back in time to one Jim Craddock, the gentleman before the ghost. Usually when you watch a kids show, at least from this later era of Cartoon Network, the antagonist of the episode is evil for evil's sake, or they want some sort of riches or other general MacGuffin. Here though, the McMuffin is life itself. Craddock spends the entire episode chasing artifacts and shaking the hands of the wicked in an attempt to live forever. I hope this episode got the cogs turning for more than just me. If we jump forward a bit, we get to the Siege of Starro, a two-part epic hyped up as far as the network's ad budget would take it. Remember the cast of colourful characters I mentioned? Yeah, well this one's about Buona Beast. A recurring character throughout the show, Buona Beast was something of a fan favourite comic relief character that slowly learned to take things more seriously and believe in himself the more that he worked with Batman. In their second part, he finds himself on the enemy warship, Starro's first in command, trying to steal his powers for the causes of war. Children across the world watch in anticipation as Batman fights for their lives and aims to weaken the Starro amalgamation monster currently terrorizing America. Buona Beast puts everything he's got into the machine, trying to dismantle the monster, and it's made very clear that this is the last we see of Buona Beast. There's no superhero shenanigans this time. No fate death of Batman, no third funeral for Superman. This guy's gone. It's really important that there's no immediate comic book solution. In fact, in this case, there's no comic book solution at all. He genuinely stays dead for the rest of the series. This way, kids are forced to actually think about it. Being confronted with the concept of life having an end through the TV while they're eating their Cheerios is a much better stepping stone into learning how to handle grief than just waiting until someone close to them actually dies. It's obviously not the same as when they grow up and lose a pet or a friend or a family member, but it starts them on that journey, and it makes it easier for them to deal with when the time arrives. You remember when you found out there was an end? Not that you didn't necessarily know it, but that you hadn't thought about it yet. This is when I thought about it for the first time, and I can tell you firsthand, being eased into it like this makes it a lot easier when the real thing comes to pass. And then a few episodes we get the Birds of Prey musical number with more innuendo than I can probably catch even watching it now, so that was a big week for me. That being said, the show doesn't just leave the poor toddlers in an existential crisis. The thing I love most about the show's messaging is the fact that it revisits topics from a new perspective and gives viewers more fleshed out ideas of these situations. I give you Menace of the Madniks. Batman and Booster Gold end up once again back in the past with an old friend for a mission that they know immediately precedes his last one. We get to see the pair receive closure for a friend they didn't get to say goodbye to, and it reminds the viewers to cherish what they have while it's there and not to take their situation for granted through pure ignorance to the fact that it will change. The final point I want to talk about is exactly that fact of change being an inevitability. When I was younger and first learning of these ideas, I was worried about time. I didn't know how to word it back then, but the fact that it's both intangible and inevitable gave me an existential feeling I couldn't wrap my head around. That's where legacy mantles come in. The Flash, Black Canary, even Batman Beyond, you've heard of them before. Legacy mantles are where the inevitability of time catches up to your favorite heroes and somebody else takes over the role. For Brave and the Bold, this was showcased in an episode aptly named Knights of Tomorrow, where we see Bruce get older and Nightwing take over as Batman, taking this universe's version of Damian in as his Robin. The episode talks of legacy and family and closes out with Dick retiring and Damian becoming the Bat, getting his own Robin. Time may be inevitable and the future uncertain, but that's okay, because there will always be people with the morals that they learn from being around you, and in turn, people with the morals that they learn from being around them. Life is finite. That's what makes it special. And that's what makes it important to be the best version of yourself you can be while you're around. There will be hardships, and there will be losses. But this campy cartoon from the late noughties taught me that the world is a better place when you stand up to be brave and bold.
And until we meet again, boys and girls, know that wherever evil lurks, in all its myriad forms, I'll be there, with the hammers of justice to fight for decency and defend the innocent. Good night.